Hi, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here with your next PB&J card class. And today I'm really excited to be making the card shown here, and this features this beautiful scenic stamp from Penny Black called On the Lake. And using the MISTI, the most incredible stamping tool invented, and these gorgeous stamps from Penny Black, it's really easy to create these scenic one-layer cards. So to begin, I've positioned my stamp in the MISTI, and I'm stamping onto Nina Solar White cardstock, and I wanted a very smooth cardstock that would pick up on all the details of this stamp. I'm coloring onto the stamp sort of layer by layer and color by color using Tombow dual brush pens, and I'll list all of the exact colors used at the end of the video. And you'll see that I'm stamping it several times, and this is just because I want to capture all of that detail and really deepen that color. So sometimes when you color onto your stamp with markers, sort of the brush strokes of the marker as it's applied to the stamp will show when you stamp. So by stamping it a couple of times, you sort of eliminate some of those brush strokes. Here I'm moving on to my next color, a nice deep dark blue, and I will stamp that again a couple of times. And I'm working in small sections so that the marker ink doesn't have time to dry before I stamp it. Now if your marker ink is starting to dry before you stamp it, you could huff on the stamp, so just get your face real close and blow hot air onto the stamp, or very lightly mist with water. But I didn't want to mist with water here because I'm not stamping onto a watercolor paper. So you'll see even as I work here on the trees that I will only just do a small section at a time as I go, and that'll just help with that ink, keep that ink from drying. And this is again that same color, just applied again a few times so that I get a nice impression with the trees, and it's just a little bit darker. It's really fun to see these scenes come to life. It's so simple, but it's one of those cards when you're finished, people are always amazed and wonder how you did that. Here I'm just working now onto this final tree. And again, just like the others, I'll get it a couple of times just to darken that impression. And now I wanted to have the trunk of the tree and just a few of the branches extending from the trunk to be darker. So I've grabbed a darker marker and I'm just putting that onto those areas. And I'm sort of flicking that onto the upper areas of the tree so that it doesn't have an exact start or end point on those branches. And you can kind of see the branches that are thicker as you're applying the marker ink. And those are the ones I focused on when I did this darker color. Now without moving this out of the MISTI, because I don't want to lose the position with the stamp, I am going to apply just the very tiniest bit of water on a paintbrush just to blend this a little bit more and give it a more painterly look. So there's hardly any water on that brush, just enough to activate those paints, and I'm just slightly blending that. And I'll do that on the trunks of the trees and up on some of the thicker branches. Again, hardly any water and a very light touch. Again, I wouldn't want to use too much water because I'm not working on watercolor paper, but the Nina Solar White cardstock seems to hold really well with just this little bit of water. I don't have any trouble with the paper pilling or warping at all. And then a very little bit here down at the bottom just to sort of smooth that out and give it a more painterly look. And I'm just touching up a little bit more here on those branches. And I like how that leaves some of the branches dark and some of them lighter, giving them sort of a frosty look when the stamping is complete. Now because I didn't remove this from the MISTI, I'm ready to do my next step. So I cleaned off my stamp and I'm putting an anti-static bag onto the paper, and this just helps. I'm going to be embossing, and this helps the embossing powder only stick where I want it to stick. I'm inking my stamp with Versamark ink, and I'm going to stamp it a couple of times. And then I'll sprinkle with clear embossing powder and heat to set. And what this does is it seals in all of those colors that we've just added. The blue, the browns, the darker color on the tree trunks. So when we apply our inks for the final step, those colors will remain true and will resist the inks on top. So you keep all of the nice bold colors that we've stamped even when we put inks on top. So I've got that stamped with the Versamark ink, and I'm sprinkling it here with clear embossing powder. This is another reason I wanted to work on the Neenah Solar White smooth cardstock so that I could get a nice embossed image as well. Now this first color of ink I'm using is Cloudy Sky, or Stormy Sky. I'll have it listed at the end. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me here. But it's a distress ink, and I'm just applying it with an ink blending tool and a foam pad. And I'm just putting that up in the sky area. This stamp is really easy to work with. You don't even have to do any masking when you're applying your inks. Next is the Memento Danube Blue ink. And I'm going to put this mostly near the bottom right-hand corner of the image. And you can see there where those embossed trees and that embossed blue background will resist those inks and stay nice and beautiful, and those colors stay nice and true. I'm putting just a touch of that blue out onto the lake portion, just as a reflection of the sky on the snow. And then the final color of distress ink I'm using is Vintage Photo. And I'm using this to sort of fill in this bottom section and finish this out right here. This would also be fun to do a sunset in the background and have that reflecting on the lake. I saw a card by Heather Telford that did that. Now here's a look at my finished card. I mounted that stamped panel to my note card and embellished with a penny black creative die and also a penny black sentiment. And all of the complete supply list and stamps and die cut numbers and names are listed at the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and of course our website and blog, all linked in the YouTube description box below. Happy stamping!